blind date, a short trip, a routine day, then nothing. No calls, no sightings, no trace. 3 individuals vanished without explanation. For years, their families searched, clinging to hope. Then one by one, the bodies surfaced. But instead of answers, they left behind more questions. Who took them? Why were they killed? And most chilling of all, could the person responsible still be out there? Tonight, we uncover the mysterious disappearances of Jalen Griffin, Marcus Freiberger, and Lawrence Ray Alsher. Stay with us, because the truth is never as simple as it seems. Jalen Griffin vanished in 2020, leaving behind unanswered questions. Years later, in 2024, his remains were found, yet the mystery of his death lingers. Marcus Freiberger, a yoga instructor, went missing in early 2025 after planning a blind date. A month later, his body was discovered in a remote rock quarry, but his truck remains missing. And then there's Lawrence Ray Alsher. Missing since 2023, his skeletal remains were finally found in 2025, deep in the Maryland woods. The cause of death? Still unknown. Each of these cases began with a sudden disappearance. Each ended in tragedy. But the biggest question remains, what really happened to them? Jalen Griffin was just 12 years old when he vanished without a trace in August 2020, leaving behind a devastated family and a community desperate for answers. Born on April 22, 2008, in Buffalo, New York, Jalen was more than just a missing child. He was a son, a friend, and a bright young boy full of potential. Jalen was raised by his father, Brian Griffin, and was described as a kind-hearted and energetic kid who loved spending time with his family. His smile could light up a room, and his playful nature made him well-loved by those around him. He had dreams like any child his age, but his life was tragically cut short before he could see them come true. August 4, 2020, started out like any other summer day for 12-year-old Jalen Griffin. It was warm in Buffalo, New York, and the streets of his neighborhood were alive with the sounds of kids enjoying their last few weeks of freedom before school started again. But for Jalen, that day would take a dark turn, one that would leave his family and community grasping for answers. Jalen was last seen in the area of Warren and Sear Street on Buffalo's east side. Details about his last known moments are scarce, and that's part of what makes his case so unsettling. One moment, he was there, just a boy going about his day. The next, he was gone. When Jalen didn't return home, panic set in almost immediately. His father, Brian Griffin, knew something was wrong. Jalen wasn't the type of kid to run away, and he certainly wouldn't have just left without telling anyone. Calls to his phone went unanswered. No friends had seen him. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. His disappearance shook the Buffalo community. Flyers with his face were posted everywhere. Candlelight vigils were held, prayers were whispered, and volunteers tirelessly searched for any sign of him. His family, particularly his father, refused to give up hope, believing that one day Jalen would come home. His family pleaded with the public for any information, desperate for a lead that could bring him home. The Buffalo Police Department launched an investigation, but despite their efforts, the case quickly went cold. Theories began to swirl. Some feared Jalen had been abducted. Others wondered if he had gotten lost or was in hiding. But without solid leads, it felt like the city had hit a dead end. His father never stopped looking. Brian Griffin made public appeals, reminding the world that Jalen was more than just another missing child. He was a beloved son. His absence left an unbearable void in their lives. For months, the case remained stagnant. There were no reported sightings, no credible tips, nothing to suggest what had happened to Jalen. It was as if time had frozen, trapping his family in a never-ending nightmare. But the nightmare wasn't over, it was only just beginning. For nearly 4 years, his family lived with the unbearable uncertainty of not knowing where he was or what had happened to him. Then in April 2024, that hope was shattered. Authorities discovered his remains, turning a missing persons case into a homicide investigation. The boy they had searched for was never coming home. Authorities confirmed that human remains found in Buffalo had been positively identified as Jalen Griffin. The discovery shattered the fragile hope his loved ones had clung to, that maybe, just maybe, he was still out there somewhere, waiting to be found alive. The details surrounding the discovery were sparse, adding another layer of frustration to an already painful ordeal. Where exactly were his remains found? Had he been hidden in plain sight all this time? Law enforcement remained tight-lipped, offering only the confirmation that it was indeed Jalen and that an investigation into his death was ongoing. A forensic examination determined that Jalen's death was no accident. It was officially ruled a homicide. But how had he been killed? And when? Authorities withheld specific details, leaving the public and Jalen's grieving family desperate for answers. Had he lost his life the day he went missing? Or had he been somewhere else all these years? For Jalen's father, Brian Griffin, the news was both devastating and infuriating. He had spent nearly 4 years searching, pleading for answers, and now he was left with even more questions. The Buffalo community, which had rallied around the Griffins since the beginning, was shaken. Candlelight vigils were held in Jalen's honor, his smiling photos now surrounded by flickering flames and grieving faces. People who had once shared missing person flyers now demanded justice. But justice wasn't coming, at least not yet. No suspects had been named, no arrests had been made, and the most chilling part? Whoever was responsible had been walking free this entire time. But was there more to this case than met the eye? Investigators were now forced to retrace their steps, because somewhere along the way, someone had gotten away with murder. The discovery of Jalen Griffin's remains in April 2024 marked a somber turning point in a case that had gripped the Buffalo community for nearly 4 years. With the confirmation of his death as a homicide, law enforcement intensified their efforts to unravel the circumstances surrounding his disappearance and tragic end. Upon locating Jalen's body in the attic of 107 Sheffield Avenue, a residence approximately 5 miles from his last known location, Buffalo police launched a comprehensive investigation. The condition of the remains suggested they had been there for a significant amount of time, indicating that Jalen's death likely occurred close to the time of his disappearance in August 2020. Given the state of decomposition, forensic experts face challenges in determining the exact cause and time of death. However, the classification of the case as a homicide underscored the belief that Jalen's death resulted from foul play. The property where Jalen's body was found had a notorious reputation. Records indicate that the house was associated with more than 160 police complaints between 2007 and 2024. Additionally, 3 other bodies had been discovered there over the years, though none were deemed homicide victims. This history has prompted scrutiny of individuals linked to the residence during the period of Jalen's disappearance. Given the property's troubled past and the community's concerns, investigators are also considering whether local dynamics or disputes may have played a role in Jalen's death. Despite these investigative directions, the lack of concrete evidence has led to several potential leads turning into dead ends, prolonging the anguish of Jalen's family and community. The initial classification of Jalen as a runaway in 2020 may have hindered early investigative efforts. Friends and family members contested this characterization, asserting that Jalen would not have willingly stayed away from home for extended periods. This discrepancy raises questions about whether more immediate and intensive search efforts could have altered the outcome. In response to the stalled investigation, Crime Stoppers WNY has offered a reward of up to $7,500 for information leading to the arrest or indictment of those responsible for Jalen's death. This initiative underscores the critical role of public assistance in advancing the case. Community members have expressed frustration and fear following the revelation of Jalen's fate. Neighbors near 107 Sheffield Avenue voiced concerns about safety and the property's history, with one resident stating, "I don't feel safe in my own house." This sentiment reflects a broader apprehension about unresolved crimes and the presence of potentially dangerous individuals within the community. As the investigation continues, authorities urge anyone with information to come forward, emphasizing that even seemingly minor details could be pivotal. The Buffalo Police Department remains committed to solving the case, but the passage of time and scarcity of leads presents significant challenges. For Jalen's family, the quest for answers is both a personal and communal endeavor. The tragic loss of Jalen's mother, Joanne Ponzo, in September 2023, before learning of her son's fate, adds another layer of sorrow to an already heartbreaking narrative. The discovery of Jalen's remains was not just a devastating blow to his family, it also left a community demanding justice. The questions that had lingered for years still remained. What happened to Jalen Griffin? Who was responsible for his death? And why did it take so long for the truth to come to light? Before we dive into our next case, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Jalen Griffin's case? Do you think there's more to the story? Or was this simply a tragedy that went unsolved for too long? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the most chilling, real-life cases. Your support helps us continue uncovering these unsettling mysteries. But Jalen's case isn't the only disappearance that ended in heartbreak. Next, we look at Marcus Freiberger, a man who vanished after a blind date, only for his body to be found weeks later in a place no one expected. Marcus Freiberger was the kind of person people gravitated toward, calm, collected, and deeply passionate about his work. At 45 years old, he had built a reputation in Arizona's wellness community as a dedicated yoga instructor. His students admired him not just for his skill, but for the sense of peace he brought to every session. He wasn't just teaching poses. He was helping people find balance in their lives. But Marcus had his own struggles too. Like anyone, he longed for connection. After a recent breakup, he decided to give dating another shot. A blind date, a fresh start, something new. On February 21st, 2025, Marcus told friends he was meeting someone special. He didn't say much, just that he was excited, hopeful. But after that night, Marcus Freiberger was never seen alive again. February 21st, 2025, started like any other day for Marcus Freiberger. He taught his morning yoga classes, exchanged a few texts with friends, and even mentioned that he had plans for the evening, a blind date. It wasn't unusual for Marcus to keep details to himself. He was private about his personal life, but there was a flicker of excitement in his tone when he spoke about the date. He told a close friend he was looking forward to it and that he'd touch base later. That call never came. By the next morning, messages to Marcus went unanswered. Calls rang until they hit voicemail. Friends assumed he'd gotten caught up in something, maybe even spent the night with his date. But as the hours turned into a full day, then too, unease settled in. This wasn't like him. By February 23rd, Marcus was officially reported missing. Friends, students, and even fellow yoga instructors spread the word, hoping someone had seen him. Flyers were posted, social media campaigns launched. The Arizona community was desperate for answers, but there were no signs of Marcus. No activity on his phone, no financial transactions, nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Nearly a month after Marcus Freiberger vanished, hope was fading. His friends and family had searched tirelessly, but with every passing day, the chances of finding him alive grew slimmer. Then, on March 19, 2025, a construction crew working near a remote rock quarry outside Phoenix made a gruesome discovery: human remains buried beneath loose debris. Law enforcement was called in immediately, and within days, forensic testing confirmed what many had feared. It was Marcus. But instead of bringing closure, the discovery only deepened the mystery. His body showed no obvious signs of what had happened to him. No clear injuries that pointed to a cause of death. No immediate evidence of foul play. He had simply been left there, in a place where no one was meant to find him. And then there was the strangest detail of all. His truck was missing. Authorities searched tirelessly, scouring the surrounding area, checking highway, surveillance footage, and even remote desert roads. But there was no sign of Marcus's vehicle. Whoever had left his body in that quarry had either taken it or made sure it was never found. News of Marcus's death sent shockwaves through the community. A beloved yoga instructor, known for his peaceful and kind nature, was now the center of a chilling mystery. His students held vigils, lighting candles in his memory. His friends took to social media, demanding justice. But at that moment, justice felt out of reach. The truth remained hidden, just like his missing truck. And the biggest question still loomed. What really happened to Marcus Freiberger? Theories began to form, each one more unsettling than the last. Had Marcus's blind date turned deadly? That night, he was supposed to meet someone new, someone whose identity remains unknown. If the date went wrong, could that person have harmed him? But without any proof that the date even happened, investigators are left grasping at possibilities rather than facts. Could this have been a random act of violence? Some believe Marcus may have encountered danger unrelated to his date, an attack, a robbery, or an opportunistic crime. The quarry itself raises questions. Was this just a dumping ground, or was he taken there for a reason? Or did someone he already knew play a role? Those closest to Marcus insist he had no known enemies. His father, Roger Freeberger, has been vocal about how out of character this situation is. Marcus would never have left his beloved dog, Thomas, alone for so long. He wasn't someone who would just disappear without warning. That alone makes the circumstances surrounding his death highly suspicious. As police continue their investigation, frustration grows. Without suspects, without a cause of death, and without Marcus's truck, the case feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. Someone out there knows the truth. Who did Marcus meet that night? Where is his vehicle? And what really happened between February 21st and March 19th? For now, the answers remain buried in the unknown. If you've been following along, you know this case is far from over. Theories swirl, but the truth remains just out of reach. What do you think happened to Marcus? Was it a stranger, a planned attack, or something even more sinister? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you don't want to miss more cases like this, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and make sure to like this video. And for our final case tonight, we turn to Maryland, where a man vanished without a trace in 2023, only to be found 2 years later. What really happened to Lawrence Ray Alsher? Lawrence Ray Alsher was a man who lived a quiet but steady life. At 53 years old, he was no stranger to hard work, spending years working in construction and odd jobs to support himself. Though he wasn't widely known outside his small circle, those who did know him described him as independent, reserved, and a man who largely kept to himself. He had family in Maryland, but his relationships were somewhat distant. He wasn't the type to check in often or stay in constant contact, but he was also not someone who would simply vanish without a word. That's why, when March 9th, 2023, came and went without a sign of him, those close to him started to worry. Lawrence had disappeared before, but this time, something felt different. Lawrence Ray Alsher, 53 years old, was last seen in Maryland, but the details of his disappearance remain frustratingly vague. Unlike some missing persons cases where there's a clear last known location, a witness account, or surveillance footage, Lawrence's case lacks those crucial markers. What is known is that Lawrence had a habit of going off the grid for short periods. He wasn't someone who kept in daily contact with family, so at first, when no one heard from him, there wasn't an immediate sense of alarm. But as the days passed, the silence stretched beyond what was normal, even for him. Family members grew concerned, and by the time it was clear that Lawrence had vanished without a trace, weeks had already passed. No confirmed sightings, no phone calls, and no known reason why he would just disappear. The lack of information made things even more difficult for investigators. There were no immediate signs of foul play, but there were also no indicators that Lawrence had left on his own accord. It was as if he had simply stepped out of his life and never returned. For about 2 years, the mystery remained. No answers, no developments, just an agonizing silence. Then in March 2025, everything changed. It was on the 9th of March 2025 when the mystery of Lawrence Ray Alsher's disappearance took a grim turn. Nearly 2 years after he vanished without a trace, his skeletal remains were discovered in a wooded area of Maryland. The location itself was remote, a place where few would venture without a reason, raising unsettling questions about how he got there, and more importantly, how he died. Forensic experts were immediately called in to examine the remains, but time had stripped away most of the evidence. Without soft tissue, determining an exact cause of death became an uphill battle. No obvious signs of trauma were reported, at least not initially. No gunshot wounds, no fractures suggesting a violent struggle. But that didn't mean foul play was off the table. The challenge with skeletal remains is that some causes of death leave no trace on the bones. Strangulation, poisoning, even certain types of blunt force trauma can go undetected. Investigators were left with more questions than answers, forcing them to piece together what little evidence remained. For Lawrence's family, the discovery was a bittersweet moment. The agonizing uncertainty of his whereabouts was finally over, but closure remained out of reach. Knowing he was gone was one thing. Understanding what happened to him was another. Investigators have explored multiple theories. One possibility is that Lawrence met with foul play, whether by someone he knew or a stranger, but without clear evidence of trauma or even confirmation that a crime occurred. Law enforcement has been cautious about labeling his death a homicide. Another theory suggests that Lawrence may have died from exposure or an accident. If he had wandered into the woods alone, possibly disoriented or in distress, he could have succumbed to the elements. However, this doesn't explain why he was there in the first place or how he ended up missing for so long without a trace. As of now, authorities have not publicly named any suspects or persons of interest. His case remains open, with investigators continuing to sift through whatever evidence they can find. But with so few answers, Lawrence's story lingers as a haunting mystery, one that leaves his loved ones searching for the truth. 3 people, Jalen Griffin, Marcus Freeberger, and Lawrence Ray Alsher. Each vanished without a trace. Each was later found, but their stories remain incomplete. Their families finally have the answers to where they are, but the question of what really happened still lingers in the shadows. How does someone go missing for years, only to be discovered long after the search has faded? How many other cases like these remain unresolved, their truths buried beneath time and uncertainty? And most unsettling of all, could these tragedies have been prevented? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you heard of similar cases? Do you have your own theories about what might have happened? If you found this video intriguing, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the world of unsolved mysteries. Like this video to support the channel and share it with others who follow true crime. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and stay safe.